Welcome back, Officers Republic. It's your core Assant Underworld Police Chief APGAINS. We're talking not about the leaks we talked about yesterday, but rather what we're talking about is how those leaks are going to affect normal players. Because while we don't know if it's soon or far away, changes and exciting changes are coming to the game, and that's something to at least be semi-optimistic about. Now, of course, coming soon means something different to normal humans in capital games, right? Because Gear Changes 2.0 coming soon happened 18 months ago or something like that. We even got reassured that it was happening soon. What was that, 6 months ago? So the concept of time doesn't really exist over at Capital Games because I guess after making, $2 billion, you kind of get to sit back and relax a little bit. But that being said, I do want to talk about some positives. I don't want to bash CG this whole video. They have a very predictable structure about how content, as you can see, I've been doing my dailies in the last recordings of the video, so we're about halfway done. But they have a very predictable way about how content gets distributed down the chain, right? They have a very predictable format for how you can get the new stuff at a lower level. And I'm talking free-to-play players, I'm talking low spenders, stuff like that, right? There is a very predictable model. So essentially how it works is there's something that you can't have because you're too poor, just like APGAINS, right? Let's call it R9, right? Now, R9 is useful for certain things, right? It is useful for unlocking the profundity. Now, luckily, they use crystals to sell R9 material, so APGAINS was able to win a bunch of GACs and get it. But essentially, if you don't either have the crystals or the ability to win those crystals in GAC because you've put together a good roster or for whatever reason, you're kind of just shit out of luck because you're not in a guild that's big enough to do R9 stuff in territory wars, and that's fine, right? Previously, the same lock happened for R8 when CPIT came out. I was in a guild for a very, very, very long time that just couldn't do it, right? We literally couldn't do it, so I was so far behind the R8 grind because I just wasn't in a guild that was physically capable of beating the CPIT. And so a lot of other people had R8s, and I just didn't. And eventually I made the very hard decision to leave my guild and go to a guild that I enjoy very much, but had just enough GP to actually do the CPIT, and it was awesome. And I'm not going to talk about guild switching decisions and how a lot of the stuff that's going to happen will get people to leave their guilds. And that's always sad, and I apologize for that. But essentially, all of these materials that you previously were unable to get are going to start becoming a little bit more accessible. Now, it won't really feel that great because the new best thing will be out and you also won't have access to that, but at least it does give you a clear line of succession to progress to whatever the next thing is. Maybe you really can't get R8, even with the new changes to make R8 much more available, you still can't get it for whatever reason. Maybe now that becomes a little bit more viable. And now with that R8, you can get the Executor, or you can get JMK, or you can just have an R8 if you so desire. Right? Maybe you have some R8s, but you can't get an R9. And you really want that profundity because that's going to take you to the next level, but you can't get that R9. Well, now what you can do is now that's going to become more readily available because R10 is going to come out. Maybe you didn't have access to Omicrons, but now that Datacrons are a big thing, Omicrons are becoming a little bit more prevalent, right? And a little bit more easy to access because they're being applied to some characters for key situations where maybe they weren't the best character, but they're a character that you could acquire early, right? Like Cassian, for instance, or something like that. Cassian could potentially become a very important TB Omicron when the new TB comes out if, he, plays into that role. And I believe that he will because the kind of theme will be the start of the Empire or whatever, and Cassian played a role in that. But essentially what's happening is a lot of the stuff that you were kind of bottlenecked by, and not all of it, of course, because they still want you to spend lots and lots of money, but a lot of the stuff that you were bottlenecked by is going to become more available and be replaced by other stuff that you're bottlenecked by, which is always not a fun situation to be having. But the good news is a lot more people are going to be able to get the Executor. A lot more people are going to be able to get JMK. A lot more people are going to be able to get the profundity. If let's say a lot more people are going to access to Lord Vader as well. I forgot Lord Vader requires, R8s. Maybe. I feel so stupid saying this, but, maybe. Oh, God, I feel like I'm going to get roasted, but maybe they actually go through with Gear P2, right? So maybe now lower purple gears progressing to Gear 12 into Gear 13 is more accessible, right? Now that, there's going to be other stuff to focus on, and they're probably going to figure out a new way to monetize the new TB and potentially a new raid, which would be awesome. I love it when they monetize new shit because that means shit that I've always wanted that was too poor to afford becomes a little bit easier to get, either with crystals or with gear or with whatever, or just becomes free in some sort of raid or something like that. Sorry, let me read this real quick. Taking 8 turns in a row, evading 10 attacks, and Jedi. Okay, 8 turns in a row is going to be kind of hard. I think I might need to use Darth Vader for that and do separate things here. But actually, let's just do full Jedi first because that's a pretty easy feat. But essentially what's going to happen is it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be pretty good for a little bit, I believe. I wholeheartedly believe that there's going to be a period whenever this, coming soon. They said by the end of the year. We'll see if that happens. The new TB, I think there's going to be a period where it's going to be a lot easier to get R8s and potentially even slightly easier to get R9s. I don't know if the new raid or the new TB is going to be the vehicle for R10, or if they're going to find a new genius way to put out paid characters like Conquest or something like that. I can never predict those things. I'll leave it to the people on Discord who are just friends with CG apparently. I mean, I'm buddies with some people at CG, but not in the way that these Discord people are. But yeah, that's essentially the point that I wanted to talk about, and I kind of wanted to flip it over to you guys. How, and stick around for this so that you guys can go into the comment section and kind of help me out here, because I feel like I need to hear your guys' voice on this. Not two-parter question, I guess. The first part is, how do you think they're going to change the line of progression now that new progression is coming out? How do you think it's going to happen? And then I guess on the flip side, since this is Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes and we never get what we want, how would you want that line of progression to change? Would you want it easier across the board, R8, R9? Obviously, everyone's going to say gear changes, but maybe that is what you want. Maybe you're just going to harp on that until the day you die, just like APGAINS. Gear changes, gear changes, gear changes. You promised us. Where the fuck are they? And that kind of ties back into the video we did yesterday that literally no one watched. I think I accidentally posted it at the same time that Arnold was streaming, so my 100% of my potential viewer base wasn't there. But essentially, to sum up that video for you guys, what I said was, I prefer it when CG is the one, or not when CG isn't the one releasing information, when it's more of a leak than an announcement. Because leaks, I feel like, have the hype of something new's coming, if the thing's good, right? Obviously, when Datacron's leaked, that was a very, very bad thing. But they have the hype of new stuff coming to the game without kind of the downside of CG feeling pressured into actually being able to release it, because we know they overpromise, underdeliver. They're like everyone's favorite ex-boyfriend or whatever. So I think it kind of takes the pain away from them and allows them to maybe actually finish and go through with it. But also at the same time allows people to be excited about new things that are coming to the game, because, I will be the first to tell you that when I heard Qui-Gon Jinn was going to be like gas, I was excited, right? When they had the initial leak for the first ever Omicron, right? We knew about Datacrons like 5 months before they came out, so I was able to grieve before a lot of people. A lot of Discord people were able to kind of acknowledge the pain and suffering of Datacrons before that. But I just like that model. I like the model of having someone leak it, because it allows, and I'm not saying that CG does this on purpose, but it allows them to at least test the waters about the idea, and also probably save them some time, because a lot of times, let's be honest, we know they're going to just not do half the stuff that they tell us they're going to do, right? We know that half of the things that they're like, oh, guys, like, this is coming, we know that half of those things will never actually come. And I guess that kind of saves them. Damn, these guys are fast. That kind of saves them from having to backtrack and save face, which is never good for them because they're very, very bad at backtracking and saving face. But it also allows them, in the worst of worst case situations, a little bit of a plausible deniability, if you will. You know what I mean? It allows them to be like, well, technically, and I mean, we're all going to know that it's real, but like, they'll be like, well, technically, we never said that was going to happen. And it kind of gives them a backdoor to save face a little bit. And, technically they would be right. But essentially all that would really mean is the vehicle for how we got information would change. And I think that's probably a good idea, but who knows? All right, guys. As always, I love you, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Subscribe for me, go.